Hey guys, somebody in Philadelphia has a man crush on Paul George. It's getting to the point where anybody who played football for the Baltimore Ravens can land a job with the Chargers. And is Angel City FC up for sale or not? Good morning, I'm James. This is your daily dose of sports and snark for the greatest sports city in the world, Los Angeles. This is the faithful Angelenos morning report. It is so good to be back home. It is June 15th, 2024. Back in the sanctum sanctorum of LA sports. Later tonight, I'm going to be at Dignity Health Sports Park with the wife to watch the LA Galaxy. If you see me, feel free to say hi. Totally look forward to meeting you guys. Just don't hit on my wife. And by the way, thank you to the new subscriber who joined the Angeleno Familia. I totally appreciate you. And if you like being in the know about LA sports, click and clack the like button. Click and clack the subscribe button. There's a notification bell. Hit that. It'll let you know when we drop new content. Sharing is caring. Let people know we exist. And by all means, comment. Now, before we go through the news notes, quick look at the scoreboard. The Dodgers rally past a surprisingly tough Royals team with a 4-3 victory. Chris Taylor hit his first home run of the year. Miguel Rojas also homers. Meanwhile, Rickea Jackson scored 18 points to lead the Sparks, who were just simply not a good basketball team. They lose again. Minnesota 81, Sparks 76. LA is 4-9. Meanwhile today, Kansas City is at the Dodgers once again at 6. Yoshinobu Yamamoto is 6-2 with an ERA of 3. Seth Lugo 9-2 with an ERA of 2.36. Sporting Kansas City is in town because it is Galaxy Game Day at 7:30. Joseph Paintsill will return to the pitch tonight for the Galaxy. Meanwhile, Sporting midfielder Felipe Hernandez was placed on administrative leave. He violated the MLS gambling policies for a second time. LAFC is in a remarkable run. They will take on Orlando City in Florida today at 4:30. LAFC is going for an MLS record today, a potential 6th consecutive shutout. Orlando, meanwhile, has scored the second fewest goals in the league this year. They average less than a goal a game. And Angel City FC is at Houston at 5:30. But let's get to the news. So I flew home from work last night and I was extremely happy not to have TV access because there is no effing way that I want to see the Boston Celtics hoist a banner. Let's just be real. It would make my blood boil. But if I had watched Stephen A. Simp and the rest of ESPN's NBA Finals pregame, where they obviously try way too hard to be like TNT, I would have seen the Clippers' Paul George, upcoming free agent, if he opts out of his contract, Paul George, appearing with Philadelphia center Joel Embiid. If you're a Clipper fan, that's a bit distressing, wouldn't you say? See, because earlier in the day, ESPN reported that the Clippers and George are not on the same page regarding a new contract. Now, the Clippers have taken a hardline stance against a max deal, which George wants. Guess who has enough cap space to hand Paul George a max deal without even thinking about it? You guessed it, the 76ers. So there's Embiid, their best player, and Paul George, and they're both musing about how they've never reached an NBA Finals. This was about as subtle as your average Jason Statham movie. This was as subtle as the first NWA album. Then Embiid goes and says, quote, "Hopefully this offseason we'll find a way to get better and, add some pieces," unquote. I mean, good Lord, why don't you just hand the guy a box of Godiva chocolates and get it over with? We have only talked a little bit as to why the Clippers would prefer not to give Paul George the max. It's relatively simple. There's a newer salary cap that makes things extremely restrictive the further you are over it. If the Clippers hand Paul George a max contract, they would be so far over the cap that they would be extremely restricted from making any other deals to improve the roster, and that would include trades. Also with the Clippers, you might remember a guy named Jeff Van Gundy. He was very beloved as a coach in New York, and I would suggest he was beloved when he was part of a three-man broadcast team with ESPN. Disney, unfortunately, fired Van Gundy in order to finance their latest bomb. I mean, seriously, how many times can you make sequels and reboots of The Little Mermaid before people finally get tired? Since then, Van Gundy has worked as a senior consultant for the Boston Celtics, but the Clippers would like to add him as an assistant coach. This is according to former ESPN scribe Mark Stein. Van Gundy, by the way, does have a history with Clippers head coach Ty Lue. He coached Lue in Houston back in 2004. I'm in favor of anything that weakens Boston in general, so have at it. Meanwhile, over with the Chargers, safety Tony Jefferson has decided to come back from retirement and sign with the Bolts. He spent a year away from the field as a scouting intern with, wait for it, the Baltimore Ravens, where he worked under current Bolts general manager Joe Ortiz. Jefferson also played 10 NFL seasons, with more than 3 of those seasons with, surprise, surprise, the Baltimore Ravens. And he worked under Chargers defensive coordinator Jesse Minter. Look, in all, 6 former Ravens players now play for the Chargers, including and now that includes an offensive coordinator, a defensive coordinator, and a general manager. It's all Baltimore all the time now in powder blue. But I have to tell you, signing Jefferson does make me wonder about the depth of the Bolts overall. We know that Derwin James is primarily a safety, but he's going to get moved around depending on which game it's going to be, which opponent. He could be a nickelback. He could be a safety. He could be a linebacker. Could go any number of ways. The point being is that if you move James, someone else has to take his spot at safety. So doesn't this suggest to you that if you're signing Jefferson, it is a vote of no confidence in JT Woods or AJ Finley? Particularly Woods. Remember, they put a 3rd-round draft pick on this guy. They expected him to be a starting safety by now. How shaky is their play if they literally pull a guy off the streets who hasn't played a snap of pro football in a year and a half? Just a thought. Here's a question. Is Angel City FC up for sale or not? See, a couple of months ago, we were talking about how there was this schism in the ownership group. There's a lot of people who have a part ownership in Angel City FC. And part of the ownership group was getting really concerned as to how much money was going out. Now, nobody denies Angel City FC is taking money in. We understand that it's apparently the most valuable franchise in the NWSL. But we don't know what the books look like. So we don't know how much money they're losing, if they're losing, although they probably are. Because it's easy to imagine in a league as young as the NWSL, which didn't even have a national TV contract until November of last year, you had to figure that all of the teams were just hemorrhaging cash. I'm not trying to suggest that Angel City FC is about to go bankrupt, but former Milwaukee Bucks co-owner Mark Lasry has raised more than $445 million according to federal documents. And this fund was put together in part to buy a controlling stake in Angel City FC. Can he get this and become a controlling owner? I don't know, because we just haven't heard a lot in terms of how deep the split in Angel City ownership actually is. If it's as deep as some of the stories we've been talking about 2 or 3 months ago, you might be looking at the new controlling owner in a few months. We just don't know. Sean McVay said that the rookie standout of the Rams offseason training program was running back Blake Corum. And it sounds great, and it probably is great. Keep in mind though, Corum got all these extra looks in the program because Kyren Williams was sidelined with a foot problem. Either way, whether it's Corum, whether it's Williams, this matters because you could argue that the success of the Rams offense is not about the quarterback, despite Matthew Stafford's excellence. It might not even be about the receivers, despite Cooper Kupp and Puka Nakua's excellence. Think about it this way. When Todd Gurley was the every down back, the Rams were damn near impossible to stop. The Super Bowl championship year, Cam Akers was hit and miss. But if you recall last year, the Rams offense completely disintegrated in the 4 weeks that Kyren Williams was out. In short, I'm suggesting to you that the Rams need an every down back. If they don't have one, they're in real trouble. So, it's really important to Sean McVay that Blake Corum excelled. According to McVay, Corum was, quote, mature beyond his years. I love the way that he handles himself. I love even more how when there's been a couple of things that didn't go the way we wanted, how he responded the next play. The mental toughness that you see in him, unquote. And speaking of Stafford, you might have heard about Jacksonville, how they signed Trevor Lawrence to a massive contract extension. Tied with Joe Burrow of Cincinnati for the highest paid quarterback in the league in terms of average money per year, $55 million. So then you take a moment and you consider Stafford, who, unlike Lawrence, unlike Burrow, Stafford actually has a Super Bowl win on his resume. Of the 10 highest paid quarterbacks in the NFL, know this, only one of them has a championship, at least one. And that's Patrick Mahomes. In other words, if Stafford is going to say, hey guys, I think I'm underpaid here, he's got a point. Even Justin Herbert of the Chargers, who comes in at $52.5 million per year, no playoff wins. Now that's not to clown Herbert. I'm not trying to tell you he's not a good quarterback, because he clearly is. But it would be interesting to know in more detail what Matthew Stafford is actually asking for the Rams. We know he wants more guaranteed money. But is there more that he wants than just guaranteed money? Because we're not hearing anything yet. They're keeping it very hush-hush. USC's point guard, Desmond Clark, will miss most of summer practice because he had elbow surgery in the offseason. And by the way, he's also going to have another surgery to the other elbow to clean things out, apparently. Coach Eric Musselman said that they were aware of Claude's troubles when they recruited him in the transfer portal. Quote, this was important because he was playing through some pain and felt like this was the best time to do it so he didn't have to deal with pain during December and January or after our season when he could be potentially focused on the pre-draft process, unquote. That's from Coach Musselman. So you let me know what you think in the comments thread. Now that Paul George is palling around with the Sixers' best player on national TV, what does that tell you about his future with the Clippers? And for that matter, are you okay with the Chargers looking extremely raveny now? Either way, let me know what you think in the comments thread. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Well, actually, we'll talk to you later tonight. I think I'll post at the Galaxy game. Thank you for watching. I'm James. Faithful Angelenos is a Kian Cortel Queso production. Take care.